Hey guys, it's Angie and Dara with EIP. We are here to and Nora. Hi Nora. We are here as today to talk a little bit about why it's so important to maintain your period. So this is definitely a great topic for women of all ages. Both Dara and I are girl moms, and this is something I never learned when I was younger, and I'm really trying to help my daughters learn this. And obviously Dara's a girl mom too. Her daughter's a little bit further behind my mom, but my kids. But it's really important for us to know this information, to implement it into our lives, no matter what age we are, because it really helps overall thriving in life in the future as well. So for any woman who is starting their period or is having their period or is trying to get pregnant or has small children or has older children or is perimenopausal, menopausal, these are really important tips for your overall health. Because really the whole reason we're talking about this is really trying to balance that abnormal stress response in our body. And these are tips and how to do it. And our periods can really show us if we're doing a good job or a bad job of it. So that's why we relate it to periods. So we're going to talk a little bit about just how to soothe our hormonal system. Again, the whole reason we talk about this is because we live in a life of chronic stress, abnormal response to stress, always living in this fight or flight stage. And our bodies are not meant to do that. Our bodies are meant to respond to stress appropriately for a small period of time, but they're also meant to relax and come down. And I feel like our culture is really bad at just pushing us to live in that high stress all the time. Mm-hmm. So there's different ways we can really help this to really improve the symptoms related with it. So there's a lot of different ways you can actually test your cortisol level. They're all not super accurate because cortisol goes up and down throughout the day. It's not a great blood test. Saliva test can sometimes be helpful, but you really have to make sure you're checking at the right time of day. So really understanding the symptoms of chronic stress and your period is a great way to look at how your body's responding to stress, because if you have abnormal symptoms with your period, you're likely not responding to stress well. You're not living a well-balanced diet. So lots of things that we talk about. So there are many things we understand as just normal. Massage can help. Yoga, meditation, prayer, music, those type of things. But there's some other things that we don't talk about a lot. And one of them is maintaining your blood sugar and keeping that steady dose. So I do know I always test all my patients for insulin resistance. I think it's super important. And most people will go to their primary and they'll say, oh, your labs are fine. Well, that's not necessarily true if they're in that reference range. You want to look at where they're going, where they've been, and is it suboptimal? So really there's some numbers I look at specifically, and I can tell you probably 99% of my patients I test have some level of insulin resistance. And a lot of that has to do with our food intake. So Dara, what are some tips you have for foods for helping decrease insulin resistance and inflammation that it causes in our bodies?
Number one would be sugar. You need to cut out sugar.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're at, you may need to cut sugar out completely. And that would mean probably not even doing fruits for a while. And I know that that sounds so harsh, but you don't have to live there forever. There is the ability to heal from insulin resistance, or at least make it a lot better. So, yeah, sugar is the number one thing that causes inflammation in your liver, and then you're not able, and then basically your insulin resistance gets worse and worse and worse. And so it's like, sugar is the number one thing, and it causes inflammation all over your body. So that's the biggest thing that I would say cut out. And I know it's hard. It's everywhere. It's in everything. But that's when we shop the perimeters of the grocery store and we make meals out of whole foods and try to limit anything that is packaged. So sugar would be the biggest one.
But you're talking also sugar substitutes, correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, if you're really desperate, you could do stevia, or monk fruit is one, but and xylitol is another one. But Yeah, I would say all for the beginning. If you can get
Those,
past,
yeah, those sugar substitutes will also make you crave sugar more. So it's
Mhm.
best to not even to do those for a while till you break that. It's also an emotional connection to sugar. I think a lot of us have as well.
It is a very emotional connection. This is something that when you really like start to look at, if we have any amazing thing happen in our life, your child won a game, you graduate, college, whatever, what do you do? What do you do
Celebrate
to
with food.
celebrate? You go out to
Yeah.
eat. You go get ice cream. And I'm not here to you know, condemn those things necessarily, but just be mindful. Maybe it's time we repattern our brains to celebrate in different ways that don't revolve around sugar and food in general.
Hmm. And it's not just
Yeah.
about celebrating, it's mourning, right?
Yeah,
We
that's true.
mourn. We do
Yeah.
the same thing. Because sugar makes you feel good for at least a short minute there.
Yeah. Yeah. But in the long run, it's so much better if you can vastly limit it or try to quit it altogether for a time. And it's really, really hard for 7 days. Usually, if you can make it past the 7 day with no sugar, it's going to be, so much better for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's lots of reasons to avoid sugar, but there's other foods that can cause inflammation in our body too. What are some other foods that can cause inflammation in our body that can really lead to this dysregulation of stress?
So another two, I think we talk a lot about, and I'll just say them again. Well, actually, yeah, there's a couple, but wheat, dairy, alcohol, and
Yeah.
then vegetable oils. Terrible, terrible for you. If you have canola oil, if you have vegetable oil, basically any seed oil, those you need to get out of your house. They're
Mm-hmm.
terrible for you. They cause so much inflammation in your body. Some better options would be coconut oil, the grass-fed butter, avocado oil, or ghee. Ghee is another good one. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, those would be much better. But again, the wheat and the dairy, a lot of people have for dairy an intolerance to the casein protein that's in dairy. So if that's you, but you still really want to do milk, you could do the plant alternatives like coconut, almond, soy in small amounts. Or you could do things like a lot of people can digest goat's milk a lot
Mm-hmm.
better. So you could do goat's milk instead of cow's milk. And it's
Yeah.
not going to be for everyone, but if you know you have this inflammation, I would say try cutting it out. And you need to cut it out for at least a good rule would be at least 8 weeks. 3 months would be even better. I know that sounds like terrible, but that's like the time your body needs to really regenerate and to reduce all that inflammation. The same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, wheat's not a problem for everyone, but it's going to be for several people. So if you can cut wheat out for the same amount of time, and then you can slowly reintroduce those foods and see how your body responds. But eliminating those first would be very helpful.
And just so people are aware, when you reintroduce a food, you can have symptoms of a reaction or an intolerance to that food up to 3 days after you reintroduce it. So it's not always immediate. It can be a few days later. It can be brain fog or a headache, or it could be fatigue. It could be really vague symptoms. So it's really, you have to be very conscientious of what you're putting in your body and paying attention to your body's response to it. So if anyone's ever interested in an elimination diet, we have that available. And we can work with you through that, because it can be very tedious and challenging, but it can be very, really help you understand your body better.
Yeah,
so those
absolutely.
are great tips.
And I hear a lot of people say, I don't think gluten's an issue for me because I don't have celiacs or, IBS or anything like that. But it's not always as drastic as that. It can just be smaller things, like it can cause depression, mouth ulcers, migraines, brain fog. I know most everyone, I think, has brain fog, but like joint and muscle pain from overall inflammation, eczema can be a large part in eczema, psoriasis, and then it can eventually cause or be a factor in causing autoimmune issues.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not always the digestive part that affects people, which is important to keep in mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. And like you said, autoimmune issues are so rampant anymore. Eczema, psoriasis are both autoimmune issues. Then Hashimoto's is an autoimmune issue I see very often. Diabetes can be autoimmune. And then once you have one, you're more likely to have a second one. And then once you have two, you're more likely to have cancer. So it's just really important to know that when your body starts to attack itself because the inflammation's out of control, you really have to take that as a warning sign and do something about it before things get worse.
Yes, absolutely.
What are some good foods that we can put in our diet to really help?
I would always recommend like lean proteins. Beef is a great one for so many reasons. If you can do it, organ meats are great. I know that freaks a lot of people out. I will admit I am one of them. But yeah, the liver is fantastic, and a great way to utilize it is when you get it would be to blend it up and to I know. Bear with me. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better.
Yeah.
But blend it up and then like freeze it in ice cube trays. And then when you're making anything with ground, Angie, your face. When you're making anything with ground beef, just take an like small portion and throw it in. You're never gonna know the difference.
Oh well, that I mean, it's just the whole process of blending it up. It's just gross. I'm never gonna use the blender again ever for anything.
I know. I mean, you can. I mean, that's like the cheapest way to do it and the easiest for your entire family to reap the benefits, especially if you have small kids. I mean, you can just do. You can get like pills, and they can be liver pills or whatever, which are great. But that's the most family friendly option. If you can't stomach it, maybe your significant other can cook for you that night. I don't know. If you don't know, it's not there, right? Like
it's the blending process that really grosses me out. Like once I get past that would be okay. I don't know. Because we have so many people in my house. We'll make like 4 pounds of ground beef at a time, and so one little ice cube in that really wouldn't probably bother me very much. But
no, probably even 2 or 3, you really wouldn't know is there.
Yeah,
when I was postpartum, my friend made gravy for me, and she used chicken livers in there, and you would never know. It wasn't until after I ate it that she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way." And so,
well, it's good because you need a little extra.
Yeah.
Build up your blood a little bit because many of us are also iron deficient, so that's a great way to get your iron up too, for sure.
Yeah, in every single way, it's just good for you in every single way. But so lean meats. But then organ meats are great for you. And then I would also say vegetables, usually the more colorful, the better. Mm-hmm. And then if you're going to do fruits, berries are usually the best option. So they don't spike your blood sugar as much. They got a lot of good micronutrients in there. So yeah, that's what I would suggest would be berries over anything else.
And just so you're aware, there's some tips too. Like if you are trying to regulate your blood sugar, which we all should be, because even if your blood sugar is normal in that reference range, you don't want those spikes and falls. So if you're ever interested in doing a continuous glucose monitor to see which foods specifically you react to, or you do have some high spikes and falls, I have put a lot of people on GLP-1s at a really low dose, so those injectables, just to get their insulin, their blood sugar under control as they're learning to eat appropriately. And part of that is if you start every meal with a vegetable, you're going to not have the spikes in your blood sugar as you would if you were to start it, say, with a carb or with the fruit. If you have oatmeal for breakfast, you're going to spike your blood sugar. But if you have a couple of celery sticks and then oatmeal, you're not going to spike your blood sugar as much. So there's very simple ways to change the way you eat that can really help regulate your blood sugar. And I can't stress how much blood sugar can affect inflammation in your body and really cause long-term problems if it's not under control. So
yeah.
So just a couple other tips as we talk about really keeping your period health, really regulating your stress. So sleep, and I know it's really hard to manage sleep, but getting rid of that blue light before you go to bed and while you sleep, getting up and in the sunlight as soon as you wake up during the day, avoiding caffeine, especially after a certain hour. You can add some magnesium and melatonin to help you sleep. Those are different things. Having a really good nighttime routine where you're de-stressing, stretching, that type of thing. Those can be helpful with sleep. Sleep is hard for a lot of people, but really understanding that sleep starts with first thing in the morning really doing things right first thing in the morning, and getting your cycle, your circadian rhythm under control too. Decreasing inflammation, we talked a lot about that, but some supplements that can help with that too. Curcumin, turmeric can be very helpful in really decreasing your inflammation in your body. Berberrine's great for helping with blood sugar regulation, so that's another great one. Making sure your vitamin D level is under control, and we really want it between 60 to 80 or 60 to 100. And if you don't know where your vitamin D level is because your primary has never checked it, ask them to check it. You need it not just at 30, you need it above 60, between 60 and 100. And there's all kinds of other stuff that can be helpful, that can really nourish your body. Lots of different things. We've talked about these before. Ashwagandha can be helpful. Taurine, some of the B vitamins can be very helpful. Remembering to take some time for yourself, deep breathing, prayer, meditation, grounding can be helpful to help de-stress. But really, eating appropriately, nourishing your body appropriately, detoxing appropriately, and really managing your stress can all be reflected in how your body responds with a period, and your period can be healthier, and this will help you long term. So if you're a teenager, they're probably not thinking about this, but you need to be preparing for when you want to have children. You want your periods to be healthy and your body to be healthy at that point, because trying to have kids is something that you have to prepare for years in advance, just because there's so many things that you got to optimize your body for. And then as we're going through perimenopause, menopause, these things can be super helpful in decreasing the symptoms, or really getting rid of the symptoms that are associated with it as well. And really for overall health, maybe you're having symptoms you weren't even associating it with it, but these are all different ways that we can help optimize our health, decrease stress, really maintain our periods, and our overall body inflammation, decrease it all. And honestly, just a reminder, if you don't know this, so many, probably 90% of chronic diseases are caused by chronic inflammation. So any way you can decrease inflammation in your body, you are going to have long-term benefits that you may not even know about, because you're avoiding so many complications of chronic diseases. So just a reminder that it causes long-term benefits as well. And so really optimizing your health is so important. So.
Yeah. And I feel, I just want to add one quick note to the supplementation from a mom who, has been pregnant or breastfeeding or both for years and years and years. When we offer suggestions, especially for herbs, different herbs like the berberine, I know for sure you should not take when you're pregnant or breastfeeding. So any of our recommendations, if you are pregnant, think you may be pregnant, or breastfeeding, check with Angie, or, do your own research to make sure that those are safe for where you're at in life.
Yeah, absolutely. If there's any chance of pregnancy or trying to get pregnant, there's definitely a whole different set of recommendations in breastfeeding as well. So we want to make sure that we're working with that as well. But this is why we talk about doing this earlier in life, or before you start even thinking about that, to really regulate things so that your body is tip-top condition when you are starting to have thoughts about having babies. So yeah, wonderful. All right. Well, thanks, Tara. We will talk soon again about other things, hormones, exercise, diet, so many different things. And if you guys have any questions at all, please send us a message. We're happy to address those issues. Check us out at essentialinfusionsplus.com. Give us a call. And we're so happy